everybody. This is the Let's Talk podcast, hosted by Ira Warren, a facilitator and coach with Vistage Worldwide. In each episode, Ira shares with you over 40 years of successful business leadership and his driving passion to enhance the lives of CEOs throughout Long Island using the Vistage Peer Advisory model. Here's this week's show.
This week's guest is Jeff Goldberg, president of Jeff Goldberg Associates, where his clients consider him a sales psychiatrist. Jeff works with individuals and organizations to bring them measurable and sustainable sales improvement. Jeff, welcome to Let's Talk.
Thank you, Ira. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I can't resist. First, tell me, how did you get the moniker of sales psychiatrist?
That's a great question. So, among other things, I actually sell 4 services, and one of them is sales coaching. And I was working with a VP of sales at a large law firm who was building a nationwide team. And I think I'd worked with him for about 4 or 5 months. And at the end of a session, he goes, "I got to tell you something. You're my sales psychiatrist." And I said, "Wow, that's a great title. I've never heard that one before. What makes me your sales psychiatrist?" And he said, "Well, every time I speak with you, I always end up feeling better, and you give me excellent advice. So I think the next time I print up my business cards, I'm going to have Jeff Goldberg, sales psychiatrist."
Sounds great. Let's just go back to where it all began. I mean, you've been doing this for a number of years. How'd you get into sales training and coaching as a business?
Sure. Well, I've been in sales my entire career, which is 48. I'm going on 49 years now. I've never done anything other than sell. And I had closed down a business in 2003, and I was looking for my next opportunity. And I answered a blind ad in the New York Times. For those who don't know what a blind ad is, it's an ad that says the job, but doesn't say the name of the company. Turned out to be for a very large, at the time, well-known sales training company. And I went to work for them. And it turned out to be the job I'd been meant to do all my life for a couple of reasons. One is sales and sales management are truly my areas of expertise. And the other one is I truly love helping people. And I don't say that to make me sound altruistic. I love getting paid for what I do, but I love helping people. It's an amazing feeling when I get emails or calls saying, "Hey, Jeff, I closed a deal that I wouldn't have closed if you hadn't taught me that thing," or "I got a promotion to sales manager, and if you hadn't said this, I wouldn't have done it." So it's what I've always done. And when I went to work at the sales training company, I quickly realized it was what I'd been meant to do all my life. And I think I was 49 years old at that time. And it took me a short time until I said, "You know what? I'm tired of making this guy rich. I ought to put some money in my own pocket." I went to my now ex-wife and said, "Honey, I know we just closed down a business and it didn't go well, but I'm going to open up another business because this is really terrific. And we're going to make a lot of money." And unfortunately, she said, "Okay, you can do that, but you're going to have a different wife." So the day the divorce papers were signed, that was the day I opened up Jeff Goldberg and Associates.
That's great. I read on your website that sales coaching is not just for beginners. Who would be a good fit for one of your programs?
Well, actually, anybody in terms of sales coaching, anybody who's looking to increase their sales is a good prospect for me for coaching. I've worked with beginners, brand new people who have no experience, and their company will hire me to work with them on an ongoing basis to help them accelerate whatever training they're getting there. Sometimes training is a part of my coaching too, but I've also worked with VPs of sales and sales managers, as well as highly experienced salespeople who know that they're not making enough money. Most salespeople go into sales and stay with it because it has an unlimited opportunity to earn. And the fact is that most salespeople never really live up to their potential when it comes to selling because they either don't invest in themselves and learn how to do it well, or their company doesn't teach them how to do it well. So whether you're a beginner or somebody who's experienced and really wants to take it to the next level, those are both great candidates for sales coaching. If you're making all the money you can possibly make and you don't need any help, then that would be a bad thing. But my personal experience for myself is you can always benefit from having an expert coach. Like I have a coach. Now, she's not a sales coach, but she's helped me transform my relationships, certainly my relationship with my ex-wife. And even though she tells you up front, my job is not to help you make more money, but most of my clients do. I absolutely make more money from working with her.
It's funny. In my earlier career, I was in sales before I got involved with the gasket company. One of the things that, I guess we found is that we hire salespeople and human beings show up. And one of the things that occurs is there's such unique and different personalities. Um, and it runs the gamut. How do you customize programs for individuals have such different selling techniques and dispositions and just basically different people?
Yeah, that's actually more of a management question. It's really how do you manage different people? But in terms of my training or coaching, training, when a company hires me to train their salespeople, they're not looking for me to care about what they're doing now. They're looking for me to move them into what I have to offer. So really, there's no difference. With coaching, there are certainly different styles of selling and different people who come to me at different levels. So I have to adjust what I'm doing to their level of expertise, their level of ability to listen and learn. And people listen and learn at different levels, and they have different skills and abilities. So it takes a little while to get to know the person on my side to adjust my style to them. The other thing I'll say, Ira, is that I don't do a heck of a lot of that because I believe that you have to be true to who you are, and somebody engages my services because they want what I have to offer. So there's not a lot of, well, you're this type of guy, so I'm going to teach you that. It's really a matter of, what does he or she need the most? In fact, I have two different types of coaching clients. One comes to me with an agenda every 2 weeks. Most of my coaching clients are every 2 weeks. So one comes with an agenda every time. Jeff, here's what I want to talk about today. Here's what would most help me. And then the other 50%, they come in and just say, Jeff, what do you got for me today? And with those, I always ask the same question. What's the thing that is most preventing you from being more successful in sales right now? And whatever the answer to that is, that's what we work on. Often it's, I'm not seeing enough prospects, so we'll work on prospecting. I'm seeing enough prospects, but I'm not closing enough business. Let's figure out what's going wrong in your sales process. So whatever they actually need right then and there, that's what I'm going to give them. So it's less a matter of me adjusting my training or coaching, and really more a matter of what do they really need right now.
Got it. If I kind of jump around a little bit, with all the technology and changes that I've seen in the last 40 or 50 years, LinkedIn, CRM, social media, drip campaigns, and so on. Do you find there's an overdependence on that versus picking up the phone in the old-fashioned way and dialing for dollars, making cold calls? Where's the balance, and what do you really teach your clients?
Yeah, that depends on the organization. So each organization has their own set of rules and the way they want things to go. Certainly, younger people today seem to want to make less phone calls. In fact, they don't want to get phone calls. They don't want to make phone calls. So it really depends on the person. My philosophy is this. You should be doing everything. I like what I call a blended approach to prospecting. You should try everything, test and measure, and stick with what's working and with what you're willing to do. So you said cold calling, and that's a perfect example. So it's one of my favorite things to teach because A, it's a fun class, and B, I can show you immediate results. I teach you how to cold call today. You could be on the phones tomorrow making calls. Whereas when I teach you how to sell, that takes a while to implement. So I love teaching cold calling, but I hate doing it myself. In fact, I often, not so jokingly, say, I'd rather live in my car than ever have to pick up the phone and cold call again. Of course, I do it once a month for a little while just to make sure that what I'm teaching people is working, but I've become very good. When I started my business, it was 100% cold calling. I built my business through cold calling, but I also knew that I hate it so much that I better figure something else out. So I started trying various different things. And I found that I was good at 3 or 4 of them. So that's what I focused on so that I could get rid of cold calling as quickly as possible. That's why I focus on networking, getting referrals from existing and past clients, and social media, like you mentioned, LinkedIn. And as I think I have a Facebook group for salespeople. To me, LinkedIn is a salesperson's best friend. If they can figure out how to use LinkedIn effectively, they may not have to do anything else. Most salespeople, unfortunately, are not using it the way it's meant to be used. They're doing the wrong thing. And if you'd like, I'd be happy to share with you what the wrong thing is. Would that be useful?
Go right ahead.
Yeah. So the wrong thing on LinkedIn, and by the way, I know a lot of LinkedIn experts. I am not a LinkedIn expert. I'm a sales expert. LinkedIn is part of that. But the way you should not be using LinkedIn is I want to sell to you. I do a search and I find, oh, Ira Warren, that's exactly the guy I want to sell my services to. So I reach out to you on LinkedIn and say, hey, Ira, let's connect. You accept my connection request, and I get an email from LinkedIn saying, Ira Warren has accepted your connection request. And 2 seconds later, I'm DMing you saying, hey, Ira, I'd love to talk to you about some sales training or some sales coaching or some consulting. Well, I equate that to walking into a bar and walking up to a woman going, hey, want to come back to my place? No drinks, no conversation, no dates. Just come on back to my place. Maybe if I look like Brad Pitt, that would work. Or if it's 4 a.m. and she's had enough beers, that might work. But not usually for me, not with this punum. So it's really a matter of how do you establish a relationship with somebody? How do you give them some value and then ask for the possibility of having a sales conversation? You really have to build that relationship first. And the other way, which is really my favorite way to use LinkedIn, is content marketing. You want to become established as a thought leader in your industry, whatever that industry happens to be. That's why I'm consistently posting on LinkedIn, giving away the information that I sell to people and companies with the hopes that enough people see it and go, wow, this guy really seems to know what he's talking about. I think I need to reach out to him and talk about doing some coaching or training. What I'm looking for, Ira, is I want people to raise their hand and say, hey, I need some of what you got, rather than me reaching out and saying, hey, do you need any of what I've got? Both are effective. My preference is I want people to come to me.
Yeah, it's funny. I kind of see that example you use as, don't be that guy. It's like, and we all wind up running into on our LinkedIn pages that guy. And you just, got to kind of like shake it off and move on. And, that's one connection you're kind of done with.
Well, actually, I'm not, though. I'm not. I'll just point out, I may be done with them as a connection, but I'm not going to unconnect from them. See, the reason I will personally take every LinkedIn request to connect, I'll take all of them because I'm doing content marketing. And the more people I'm connected with, the greater the chances of me reaching more people. However, my advice to most salespeople, if they're not going to use content marketing, is you should only connect with people that you either know and would be happy to refer, or are willing to take the time to get to know, because LinkedIn was originally made for networking online. It's used for a lot of other things today, but the original intent was networking in cyberspace. So if you're going to just reach out to people and say, hey, can I sell you something? You're not taking into account why most people join LinkedIn. It's to network.
Yeah. Speaking of LinkedIn, I saw your post on a LinkedIn page where you wrote about how a simple and probably overlooked aspect of sales is how you answer the telephone. Tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, I'm very big on that, Ira. When you answer the telephone, it's typically the first impression somebody's going to have of you and your organization, unless, of course, they've communicated with you via email or maybe through LinkedIn or something like that. But people are judging you immediately. Now, should they? Of course not, because it takes time to get to know somebody, but that's who we are as human beings. We judge immediately. You walk into somebody's office, you get on a Zoom call, before you open your mouth, they've already formed an opinion based on what you look like, what you're wearing, and things like that. In the old days when we actually met people in person, and we seem to be getting back to that, you walk in, they're judging you. Are your shoes shined? I am. Is there corn stuck in your teeth? So we want to make sure we're making the right first impression. But part of that is how you answer the phone. So if you answer the phone, it's Jeff or Jeff Goldberg and Associates, that's one thing, as opposed to, good morning, this is Jeff, which is how I answer the phone every time. In fact, I at one point was, I spent almost 49 years in sales, and 14 of those years were spent as an employee, sales manager, sales director, VP of sales. And at one point I was managing a team of 45 people at a company called Frost & Sullivan. And I went to the office manager and said, I want to take over managing the front desk. And he looked at me like I was crazy. He goes, why would you want that responsibility? I said, because I wanted to answer the phone a certain way. And she was a lovely young lady who had just not been taught. Well, I taught her the phone. Good morning, Frost & Sullivan. It's a great day. How can I help you? And I can't tell you how many times I would get connected to people and they would go, who's that woman who answered the phone? She's terrific. Because it's that first impression that you're making, and it's very difficult to overcome a bad first impression, as we all know.
We're going to take a short break right now and come back with more from our guest, Jeff Goldberg.
Vistage is where leaders learn and grow. We help CEOs and business owners grow their business through executive coaching and peer advisory groups. Ready to succeed at a whole new level? Learn more at irawarren.com.
I'm thinking about, sales guys and sales women and what it's like. And it's a roller coaster ride. I remember, there are the days you're pumped up and you go out there and you close a deal and you feel great and, break out the Dom Perignon. And then there are the days where you go, I don't want to get out of bed. It's like, I can't make another call. I don't want to get in the car. How do you coach your clients on how to deal with that? Because it's a real part of being in sales.
Yeah, there's two ways. The first way is you have to have somebody who you can speak with, somebody who is that person in your life. And it doesn't have to be somebody you pay like me, but it can be somebody who you can call and say, hey, you know what? I'm down today. I need a dose. In fact, my mentor in the speaking and training business, the guy he taught me everything I know. If you ever met him, he'd deny it, but I'm telling you, almost every word that comes out of my mouth, I think I stole it from him. He's brilliant at what he does. He's the best sales trainer I've ever seen in my life, but he will occasionally call me from somewhere in the world. And, it'll sound like this. Hey, Jeff, it's Steve. I'm in Qatar or someplace like that. And I need a dose of Jeff. He's the guy I call when I have a business challenge. It's like, I need to do this kind of training. What would you do here? But he calls me for a dose of Jeff because he knows I'm the kind of guy who will listen to what he has to say. I won't buy into his BS, and I'll give him the kick in the ass that he might need, or the arm around the shoulder, not literally because he's in another place. But we all need somebody who we can speak to who can get us out of our head. The other thing, and I think this is incredibly important, it's how you set up your day. You see, sales is both a skills game and a mind game. When I work with coaching clients, we work on both sides, the mental game and the actual skills game. So I can tell you this for me. I start my day the same way every day. First of all, I, of course, go to the bathroom and I get my dog's leash on him. And then I'm walking my dog through the streets of Long Beach where I live. And I have a smile on my face, literally. Now, I know I look like a dope right now, but I have a smile on my face because a smile on your face releases good chemicals into your brain, the endorphins that really make you feel good. And I'm speaking to myself out loud. And I say the same thing every single day. I have about a 10-minute thing that I say to myself out loud. So I've got a smile on my face, walking through my neighborhood, and I'm speaking to myself. And it starts with, today is going to be an incredibly wonderful day. Only great things are going to happen to myself and my family today. Only incredibly wonderful things are going to happen to Avery, my oldest daughter. I name my kids and my mom and my ex-wife and all kinds of people. And then I go through mental and physical. I'm setting myself up to have a great day, because the way most people seem to do it is they open their eyes and it's like, oh, crap, I have to go to work again today. So, it's all how you speak to yourself. And then if I could add in a third thing, it's you need to be goal-oriented. There's a brilliant book called Psycho-Cybernetics written by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. And they came out with a new edition a couple of years ago. And in there, among the many things that he says, he claims that we're all born with a success mechanism in our brain. In other words, we pop out of the womb meant to be successful. But that success mechanism needs something to focus on. And the thing that you needed to focus on is a goal. So another way to have a great attitude when you're down is to first realize that sometimes we all get down and we all need a little pick-me-up, but it's have something that you're working towards. Have a clear-cut goal. And I actually co-authored a book on goal setting and goal achievement. But when you know what you're working for, it's a lot easier to get yourself going on those days when you just don't feel like it. And if I could give you one last thing on that, if you really just don't feel like it, that might be a day that you need to take an hour off or a half a day off or maybe the full day, because sales is a roller coaster. And I'd like to give you one way to avoid that, not the mental part, but one of the reasons that salespeople have a roller coaster in sales, good week, bad week, good month, bad month, good quarter, bad quarter. Inevitably, when I have a coaching client that comes to me, and that's often the case, Jeff, I was making a lot of money and I don't know what happened. Great, let's take a look at your calendar. What happened 3 months ago? Well, inevitably what happened, Ira, is they got busy and they stopped prospecting. Because prospecting is the thing we hate the most. Me too. And it's the thing that we must do on a daily basis. There's very few salespeople that I've ever met that do not need to prospect consistently and effectively. So by doing that, consistently prospecting, you're always speaking to new prospects, putting them at the top of the funnel, and there are always some others that are going through the various stages. By having lots and lots of prospects, that helps to keep you up from the ups and downs in selling too. because anytime you stop prospecting, that means somewhere down the line, you're going to have a time where you cannot get paid unless you're on a straight salary, which means eventually, if you put enough of that time together, you're going to lose your job. But for a guy like me who owns his own company and in essence eats what he kills, if I stop prospecting somewhere down the line, I can't possibly get paid. So there's a bunch of ways to get yourself back.
Wow, you said a mouthful there. Yeah, one of the early things you said, which, I'm familiar with the Sales Pro network that you have on Facebook. And I love, you were talking about your self-talk. And you seem to do a lot of self-talk with Beachbug as you take him for his morning walk. So I just, I've known you now for over 2 years, and you are a professional speaker with the ability to inspire, engage people, entertain your team while they laugh and they learn. I've seen you deliver powerful, high-energy keynote speeches that draw on your years of experience as you are now, not only in sales and sales management, but of late, stand-up comedy. Tell the listeners more about this and how you've learned to blend, your sales coaching and stand-up comedy and entertainment.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. It's funny. So I'm one of those guys that I was a class clown. My mom was called into school every second week. He never raises his hand. He just wants to spout out anything, and he's always trying to be funny. And so all my life, friends, you should be a stand-up comedian. You should be a stand-up comedian. Well, I am a funny guy. There's a difference between making people laugh at the diner, your friends laugh at the diner or at a bar, and actually standing in front of an audience. But one of the things that I do for a living is I train salespeople. So I've worked with major corporations that everybody knows, like Cisco Systems and Siemens and Aramark and State Farm all over the world. And, when I spend a full day with a team of salespeople, whether it's 10 or 100 or more, I've got to do something to keep them involved, because I could have the best content in the world and be giving them great information that's going to help them increase their sales. But it's hard to sit in a seat for 7 or 8 hours listening to a guy like me drone on and on. You've got to do something to keep people involved. And the way I do that is using humor. The challenge for me has always been, where do you draw the line? Because obviously you can do things in a comedy club that you can't do in front of a corporate audience. And I do often step right up to the line and, oh boy, one more toe over there, and I'm going to get that beckoning finger from human resources. So I was actually talking to my coach, who I mentioned earlier, and we were talking about self-sabotage. And I said, yeah, I see the line and I step right up to it and I want to jump over it. She goes, why don't you do stand-up comedy? You can go say whatever you want. And it was like, oh my God, I tried it 28 years ago. I did it twice, realized it was going to probably never make me a living. I mean, almost nobody really makes money in stand-up. You do it because you love it. And occasionally somebody breaks through and makes a lot of money. Like a Ricky Gervais makes millions, but most people make nothing. So I said, you know what? Let me just give it a try. And I signed up for a course. It was an 8-week course. And at the end of the 8 weeks, you get to go up. And there's very little in life that feels as good as when you're able to give people the gift of laughter. Closing a deal is one thing. It's very close. But to me, giving people the gift of laughter and having them respond positively to your jokes, it's like heaven. In fact, I'm in the process of writing a complete comedy set just for salespeople, and I plan to market that to large sales organizations that have annual and quarterly meetings. I'll come and do maybe 30 minutes of comedy all about selling and sales management, and they'll also walk away with some valuable tips. So that's how the stand-up comedy came.
That's great. And I've seen you a few times, and each time you keep getting better and better. I do expect to see great things from you on that. But what's wonderful is how you blend that, and I've seen you in a more professional light, and how you do the same thing. I guess you're very cautious about where the lines are, but other than that, one of the things is, I realize, time is getting away from us. And as we're coming to the end of this broadcast, yet before we close, I'd love for you to share some advice, with our listeners. If you were going to give the salespeople out there the most important piece of advice you can, what would you tell them?
So I'll make this as short as I possibly can. When I do a program, there's usually somebody that comes up, or sometimes many people that come up and want to talk to me while I'm setting up my computer and all that stuff. And, oh, I love training. This is the greatest thing. And they always say the same thing. I've heard great things about you. And if I learn just one thing from you today, it's worth it. That's a common conception. If you read a book, you go to a seminar, if you learn one thing, it was worth it. So here's what I always say. If you only learn one thing from spending time with me, you got ripped off and I should not get paid. And you've seen me. I always give great value for any audience, whether they're paying me or not. But here's the thing I'll tell you. If you only learn one thing from me, this is the thing I'd want you to learn. And I call it the BNAS. That stands for Best Next Action Step. And it's a philosophy, and it simply means this. Never, ever leave a meeting or a phone call without setting up the next meeting or phone call right then and there. Never leave a meeting or a phone call without setting up the next meeting right then and there. And here's why. The typical salesperson, Ira, ends a meeting like this. Let's pretend you're a vice president of sales or a president or a CEO, because that's who I usually sell to. And we're having a meeting, and the typical salesperson ends the meeting like this. Wow, Ira, this has been a great meeting. Here's what I think we should do. Let me go back to my office. I want to think about everything we talked about, and I'll put together an outline of ideas on how we can increase sales at your company. And as soon as I've got that outline of ideas written, I'll give you a call. We can set up another meeting. I'll come back and share my ideas. And at that point, you'll have all the information you need to make an intelligent decision for yourself whenever you're ready. How does that sound to you? And to the you in this example, to the Ira in this example, they say the same thing. Sounds good.
Sounds great.
That's exactly right. Because what did you agree to? You agreed to
Not much. But I'm going to let you do a lot of work, and I haven't made any commitment.
Exactly right. It's okay with you if I go back and write a proposal and call you. You didn't say you take my call. You didn't say if I got you on the phone that you give me a meeting. So that's not a great way to end the meeting. The better way would be this. Hey, Ira, this has been a great meeting. You've given me a lot of terrific information. Here's what I think we should do. I'd like to go back to my office, think about everything we talked about, put together an outline of ideas on how we can increase sales at Ira Co. And I'd like to come back and share that outline of ideas with you next Tuesday at 3. How does that sound to you? Now, if you agree to that, you told me something. And the thing you told me is, I'm interested. Because a busy executive like you, Ira, I sell to CEOs, company presidents, and VPs of sales. Unless I'm selling coaching, that's typically directly to salespeople. But those people are busy people. And no busy person gives you some of their valuable time and then agrees to give you more of their valuable time unless they're interested. And that's who I want to work with. Interested prospects. The prospect who says, yeah, just give me a call or just send me an email or something like that, or call me next month, call me next quarter, call me when hell freezes over is what they really mean. I'd rather people tell me no right up front, because that's a perfectly acceptable answer to me. Yes is great. No is great. Everything else stinks. So that's the most important thing I can teach salespeople. Always, always, always end your meeting or phone call by setting up the next one. I'll give you one more example here, and then I'll stop talking. Let's say you're interested, but I do it the first way. I end the meeting saying, I'll give you a call and we can set something else up. But you're interested in this case. So now what happens? I go back and I write up my proposal. And what do? I call you. Do I get you, Ira? No. You have a company that you run or are still associated with. You're a Vistage chair working with a lot of different people that you have to take good care of. Do I get you? Maybe. But more than likely, you're not going to answer your phone because you're not sitting there waiting for a call from Jeff Goldberg. So what happens? I leave you a message. Now, remember, in this example, you're interested in what I've got to show you. I leave you a message. Hey, Ira, it's Jeff. Got your proposal ready. Give me a call. What do? You call me. You get me? Well, not if you call right now because I'm talking to you. So if my phone rings, I'm not picking it up. Chances are you and I are going to trade phone calls back and forth over a couple of days. Could be a couple of weeks before one of us gets the other on the phone. And when that happens, here's what that sounds like. Hey, Ira, are you sitting down? No? Well, sit down and buckle your seatbelt because the proposal I put together for you is going to rocket you right out of your chair. Can I come show it to you this afternoon? Which, by the way, Ira, I would never say in a million years, ever. Even if I had nothing to do that afternoon, I don't want you to know that because successful people are busy and you're not going to engage a sales coach or trainer who's not successful. So it's easily could be weeks before two busy guys like us can get together and discuss my proposal. Whereas if I just get the appointment while I'm speaking with you for the following week or even the week after, I'm cutting time off my sales cycle. Typically, I estimate you save 1 to 3 weeks every time you get a best next action step, and you're only working with interested parties.
That's great advice. The last question is twisting that around a little bit. So from advice to the salesperson to, many of our listeners, including the CEOs in the Vistage community, manage salespeople. What's the best advice you have for them for managing a sales team?
Well, there's a bunch of advice for sales managers. I actually teach a program on sales management. And, I do Vistage talks I love Vistage desperately. I think it's an incredible organization. And if I'm being completely honest, there's no group I'd rather speak in front of. It's what I call a captive audience of decision makers. I love that. But in terms of sales management, first of all, you need to be crystal clear. You need to be incredibly clear about what the job is. And that starts in the interview. Too often I see people who oversell the job, and the salesperson oversells themselves because, you got two people who want to work together. I need a salesperson. You need a job. Let's get going. And then 2 months, 3 months later, you're going, why isn't this person working out? Well, I wasn't clear about what the job really was. So you want to be very clear about what the job actually is. And you want to give them feedback regularly. Tell them how they're doing. Tell them what they're doing well, and tell them what could be improved. There's a coaching methodology that you use, but it's always, what do you think you did well? Here's what I think you did well. What do you think you could have done better? Not what did you do wrong, ever. What do you think you could have done better? Here's what I think you could have done better. So constant training, constant coaching. And you also have to understand that salespeople are weird animals. We are. I've been in sales almost 50 years. Me too, just like every other salesperson I've ever met. We're kind of like little babies, most of us. Give me the good leads. Don't give me the bad leads. And I want you to shoot off fireworks when I close a deal. And if I don't, I want you to put your arms around me and tell me it's going to be okay. Well, you have to understand that there are exactly what you said. There are ups and downs of selling, and the smart sales manager or president or CEO who's managing their salespeople directly, they take into account that there are going to be ups and downs, and they know enough about their people to recognize when they're in that lull, and they know how to empower them, whether it's they need that velvet hammer hitting them overhead and not leaving a mark, or they need the arm around them in a human resources approved way to say, all right, I understand what you're going through. Let me help you. But it's also understanding that salespeople take a beating on a daily basis. We typically hear no way more often than we hear yes. So you've got to set up an environment where it's okay to fail and it's okay to succeed. We just want to make sure we're succeeding as much as we possibly can. Giving them the tools that they need, like a great CRM system, good marketing systems. There's a whole bunch of things to do to manage salespeople effectively. I have a full day program on just the basics of that.
Wow. Jeff, all I could say is thank you so much for being on the show today. It's a pleasure chatting with you. It's a pleasure knowing you. It's a pleasure watching you work. Can you tell our listeners where they can find out more about you and more about Jeff Goldberg and Associates?
First, let me say thank you for your time. I hold you in the highest regard. It's my pleasure to speak with you and your audience. So, yes, I have a website, of course, JG Sales Pro, JG like Jeff Goldberg, SALESPRO.com. That's also my email, jeff@jgsalespro.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. My phone number is 516-608-4136, and that goes directly to me. And I also, as you mentioned, I have a sales group on Facebook, which I encourage everybody to join. We've got a little over 1,100 members now, and it's a place where salespeople can come and hang out and network with each other, ask questions. I've invited a lot of my competitors to be part of it, and we're all happy to give advice. And every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, I do a live interview with somebody who can add value to the profession of sales, or I do a live training. So lots of ways to reach me. I'm always happy to speak with people. And one other thing I'll say is I believe in giving. I've been fortunate enough to be successful, and I'm certainly closer to the end of my career than my beginning. I hope I have a long time left and I've still got plenty of energy, but I believe in giving back. So I'm always happy to give advice to people. Don't get me wrong. I like to tell people I've always got my big boy pants on. If you're calling me too often or if you're asking me for more, I will be the first person to say, hey, Ira, I think we need to talk about you paying me for this advice. But any of your listeners have a question that I can answer, they can reach out to me. I'm happy to help if I possibly.
So from the very first time we met, you are one of the most giving people I've ever met. And the way you reach out is just fabulous. So once again, thanks for being here. It's been a pleasure. And BNAS, let's set up a lunch for next Tuesday.
You got it. Anytime with you, my friend.
Thanks for listening to Let's Talk Podcast with your host, Ira Warren. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. If you're interested in joining more than 23,000 members across the globe that count on their Vistage Peer Advisory Group to help them make better decisions, be better leaders, and get better results, then let's talk. As always, you can head over to irawarren.com to sign up to our email list, get more information on joining my Vistage Peer Advisory Group, as well as check out all the links and resources in the show notes. That's all for this episode, folks. See you next time.